controversy is ruining it. An Indian university claimed credit for a Chinese robot dog. They've been kicked out of the event, but the episode has cast a shadow on the good work done by others. Meanwhile, Brazil's President Lula da Silva is in India, not just for the AI summit, but for a broader realignment of the global south. We'll discuss the agenda. In West Asia, the threat of another war looms. No breakthrough in talks between the US and Iran. US media reports say an attack is imminent. In Dhaka, the first big test for Prime Minister Tariq Rahman, Jamaat supporters have hit the streets in protest. Also in focus, how China could be expanding its nuclear arsenal near Arunachal Pradesh, why Canada is talking about strategic autonomy and what's their plan to achieve it, why Donald Trump is being called the worst president in US history, how Al-Qaeda has become 50 times bigger than before, why Chinese tourists are skipping Japan in large numbers, and what do you think about digital afterlife? Would you let an AI bot post on your behalf after you're gone? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Russia and Cuba slammed the US energy blockade of the Caribbean island. The show of solidarity comes as Cuba's top diplomat visits Moscow, where he will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump has cut off key supplies of Venezuelan oil to Cuba. He has also threatened sanctions on states that sell oil to Havana. Germany's foreign minister downplays talk of worsening ties with France. In recent months, relations between the two countries have been strained. Germany has threatened to abandon a fighter jet project with France. And while Paris has opposed the European Union's trade deal with Mercosur, Berlin has strongly backed it. Philippines Vice President Sara Duterte announces her 2028 presidential run. Duterte has been embroiled in a feud with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. She was impeached last year, but it was later overturned by the country's Supreme Court. Philippine presidents are limited to a single 6-year term, which eliminates Marcos from the field. Russian and Belarusian athletes will compete under their national flags at the Paralympics in March. This is the first time they will do so since the Ukraine war began in 2022. A total of 10 sportspersons will participate from the two countries. Ukraine says its officials will boycott the Paralympics in protest. And Gabon cuts off Facebook and TikTok amid anti-government protests. The country's media regulator says online posts were stoking unrest. The protests come less than a year after their president was elected. In December, school teachers began their strike over pay, and now other public officials are threatening to follow suit. This week is India's AI moment. We are hosting a massive summit in New Delhi. You've got 20 heads of state flying in, more than 60 ministers in attendance, and 500 plus AI bigwigs. All of them are coming here for one reason: to see India's AI capabilities, to see our AI startups and their brilliance. Today was day 3 of the summit. The previous days focused on startups and AI services. Now the focus has shifted to politics. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was at the summit venue today. He welcomed world leaders to the gathering.
His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, His Excellency Mr. Pedro Sanchez, President of the Government of Spain,
Missing today was French President Macron. He will visit the summit venue tomorrow. Today he was at AIIMS, Delhi. That's the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in the capital. Macron inaugurated a joint India-France centre there. It will integrate AI into medicine. After the inauguration, Macron also posted An AI picture of himself and Prime Minister Modi shows both leaders making a heart with their hands. It's an AI-generated photo. Earlier in the day, the Prime Minister sat down with Google CEO Sundar Pichai. He announced a new India-America Connect program. It aims to build new undersea cables from India. They will connect Singapore, Australia and South Africa. It's part of Google's $15 billion investment in India. Meanwhile, in the summit halls, the rush continues, so much so that the event has been extended. It was supposed to end on the 20th of February. It will now end on the 21st. With all these meetings and announcements, you would expect some positive press. Well, think again. If you open any news website today, these are the headlines. Controversy rocks AI summit, university thrown out for fake claims. If you're on the internet, you already know what happened. It all started yesterday. An Indian university was showing off a robotic dog, the Galgotias University near Delhi. They called the robot Orion. It was doing all sorts of stunts at the pavilion, sitting on two legs, dancing around and doing somersaults, so naturally it got a lot of attention. Even the Indian government and the IT minister posted pictures of it. The university claimed that they had made this robot, that it was developed at their so-called Center of Excellence. But guess what? This robot was actually made by a Chinese firm, a firm called Unitree. Such robots are already available in the market. You can buy one for $1,600. So Galgotias University basically imported this robot from China and they tried to pass it off as their own. They were caught. Despite being caught, they refused to apologize at first. Listen to the university's officials.
सर योर 6 कैन बी माई 9। मैं जो कहना चाहती हूँ शायद मैं बहुत अच्छे से कह नहीं पाई, समय के अभाव के कारण या आसपास के बज़ और शोर के कारण, और आप जो समझना चाहते हैं शायद आपने उसमें पूरा धैर्य नहीं दिया उसको ठीक तरह से समझने का।
Because it was all done with a lot of energy and with a lot of enthusiasm and very quick in a jiffy. So I may not have come across very eloquent, which is a rare case. And also कि उसको ठीक तरह से उसका intent समझने की कोशिश नहीं की।
हेरफेर है कि डेवलपमेंट हमने उसको डेवलप नहीं किया है, हमने उसके डेवलपमेंट पे काम किया है।
Talk about digging a bigger hole. The professor calls it a communication error. The registrar says they got two words mixed up, developed and development. Of course, no one bought that. We went through the video clip multiple times. The professor very clearly claims that the students developed it, that too on 2 occasions. And guess what? This was not a one-off. The same university also showed off a drone. They claimed it was end-to-end engineered at Galgotias University. Again, this was a false claim. The drone looks identical to a South Korean drone. Just like the robot, you can buy it on the market. Now, as the controversy grew, the government stepped in. They cut off power supply to the Galgotias pavilion. They asked the university to vacate the area. Take a look at this. After all this drama, the university finally apologized. Listen to their statement. We wish to apologize profusely for the confusion created at the AI summit. One of our representatives manning the pavilion was ill-informed. She was not aware of the technical origins of the product and in her enthusiasm of being on camera, gave factually wrong information. So the college is blaming the professor. They say it was not an institutional attempt to make fake claims. Well, if that was the case, why not apologize earlier? Why defend the move, and that too multiple times? Also, we must ask, what was the IT ministry doing? How did they let something like this happen? We know that this was an exhibition, not a sale, so nobody is going around verifying or certifying products. Having said that, the ministry cannot evade responsibility. For starters, why did they post about this robot? Yes, the post has been deleted now, but the fact is they amplified it. And secondly, are there no background checks? Surely the institutions and businesses must be vetted. You can't just take money and allot space. So when the dust settles, the IT ministry will have some questions to answer. Let's hope the education ministry also takes note, because these are the universities that are teaching our next generation. But do you know the saddest part? All this drama is drowning out the good work. Let me introduce an Indian startup called Xterra Robotics. They too have a booth at the AI Summit. And guess what? They actually have developed a robotic dog. It's called Swan M2. It's India's first commercial four-legged robot, and this one is legit. This company was founded in IIT Kanpur in 2023. They did not import or copy this robot. Here's another example, a startup called Big O Health at the summit. It was founded by a man who lost his mother to cancer last year. He is now using AI to improve cancer treatment. His tool analyzes the patient's condition. It looks at past cases and global studies, and finally, it suggests the perfect course of treatment. These examples sum up India's AI ecosystem. We may not be building flashy billion-dollar chatbots, but we are making a difference. Whether it's in medicine or education or even infrastructure, we are using AI to improve lives and livelihoods, and the world is watching closely. It is always on the lookout for mistakes or failures. And Galgotias University gave them exactly that, a reason to question India's capabilities. This goes beyond miscommunication or mistake. This looks a lot like malice. And we say accountability must be fixed. Like I said, two heads of state are attending the AI summit in New Delhi. 20 heads of state are attending. Among them is Brazil's President Lula da Silva. He landed this afternoon, and his agenda is not limited to this summit. President Lula is on a bigger mission, a mission to bring Brazil closer to India. Lula is on a 5-day visit. He is leading the biggest ever Brazilian delegation to India. He has come with more than a dozen ministers and business leaders from 260 companies. 260 Brazilian companies have come with their president. So this is a high-profile visit in every sense of the term. And it is designed to achieve big-ticket outcomes. India too is rolling out the red carpet. After the AI summit, India will host a reception for Lula at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which is the official residence of the Indian president. On Saturday, President Lula will meet Prime Minister Modi for bilateral talks. This will be followed by a business forum with participants from both countries. Now, India and Brazil were always close partners. So what explains this new push? The short answer is Donald Trump. The US president imposed steep tariffs on both India and Brazil. These two countries were put in the highest tariff bracket of 50%. India has recently negotiated a deal with Trump, so the 50% tariff is down to 18%, but there's no such relief for Brazil. In fact, even for India, it would be unwise to count on this relief because Trump is an unpredictable player. Unpredictable and unreliable. The tariff rates he settles today can easily be undone tomorrow, and there is precedent for this. The US had a deal with the European Union, but last month Trump threatened higher tariffs on some European countries over Greenland. So policy is a matter of whim. That spells uncertainty for America's partners, and that is why countries are diversifying, they're widening their options, and that's also true for India and Brazil. You see, both these countries are democracies. Both are large economies, and both are members of BRICS, the group that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Also, both are important players in their respective regions, India in South Asia and Brazil in Latin America. And both countries represent the interests of the global South. So it makes sense to deepen ties, which brings us to the focus of this visit. And trade will certainly be on the agenda. It will top the agenda. In 2025, Brazil purchased Indian goods worth $8.5 billion, and it sold goods worth $7 billion to India. This trade is largely dominated by oil. Brazil wants to expand it to other sectors, and it wants to sell more to India. India, too, is looking for greater market access, not just in Brazil, but across Latin America. So they could talk about a wider trade deal. The Mercosur-India Free Trade Agreement could come up. Mercosur is a South American trade bloc, better known as the Southern Common Market. Its members include Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. They've been discussing a trade deal with India for years. Lula's visit could accelerate those talks. So that takes care of trade. Beyond trade, there is a deeper strategic layer to this visit. And this would feature rare earths. These are minerals that power modern-day gadgets like smartphones, EVs, computer chips, even advanced weapon systems. They all need rare earths. And right now, one country dominates their supply. That country is China. China controls both the mining and processing of rare earth minerals. It has been weaponizing this dominance. When China wants to punish or pressurize a country, it throttles rare earth supplies. It uses them as leverage in trade negotiations with the US. So the world urgently needs alternatives, and Brazil is keen to step up. Brazil holds 23% of the world's rare earth reserves, 23%, which makes it the second largest source in the world, next only to China. And experts are convinced about Brazil's potential. They say it can emerge as a viable substitute to China. Of course, India would be interested in tapping this source. Reports say an agreement could be sealed during this visit, an agreement on critical minerals. So this trip is not just about the AI summit, it's about a broader realignment within the developing world. India and Brazil have been pushing for a multipolar world. They've been avoiding playing camp politics, and they've advocated for a bigger voice for the global south. This visit could advance that shared agenda. The threat of an attack still hangs over Iran. There was another round of talks yesterday, indirect talks between the US and Iran, with Oman playing the mediator. The talks were held in Geneva. Diplomats were aiming for a nuclear deal and a peaceful way to coexist. And while this conversation happened behind closed doors, out in the sea, it's been a different story. The warships are talking war, and the build-up looks serious. So what's the real story? Are we heading towards a deal or a disaster? Let's look at the talks first. The first round was held in Oman. The second one was held in Geneva, Switzerland. On the US side, you had Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner. On the Iranian side, it was their foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi. He said that they made good progress, but there's no breakthrough.
Good progress has been made compared to the last meeting, and we now have a clear path ahead, which I think is positive. This does not mean that we can reach an agreement quickly, but at least the path has started. We hope that this will be done as soon as possible, and we are prepared to spend enough time on it.
That's diplomatic talk for no resolution yet. So that's the Iranian version of events. What did the United States say? Well, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have not said anything about the talks. But US Vice President J.D. Vance has. He said that Trump wants diplomacy to work, but all other options are very much on the table.
But the President of the United States is very much trying to find a solution here, whether it's through diplomatic options or through another option that means that the Iranians cannot have a nuclear weapon. That has always been the main focus. That is the goal of the President of the United States, and he's got a lot of options and a lot of tools to make sure that doesn't happen.
So what are those other options? The obvious answer is war, and all signs are pointing towards it. US media reports suggest that Washington is very close to war, and the military buildup supports that assessment. Over the past few weeks, the US has been building military muscle across West Asia. Warships, destroyers, fighter jets, air defenses, they've deployed everything. The USS Abraham Lincoln is now in the Arabian Sea, off the coast of Oman. This is one of the largest warships in the world. Another warship, the USS Gerald R. Ford, is heading towards the Gulf. More than 150 US military cargo flights have flown to West Asia. They are loaded with weapons and ammunition. In the last one day, 50 fighter jets have arrived in the region, including the F-16s, F-22s and F-35s. So it is quite the deployment in West Asia. Analysts say it's enough to support hundreds of airstrikes every day. So what will a US attack on Iran look like? Reports suggest it won't be like the last time. The last time was in June 2025. The US bombed Iran's nuclear facilities. It was a pinpoint operation. And the US was not leading it. It was an Israeli operation, an operation that the US joined. And this fighting lasted for 12 days, June 2025. This time, it would be different. Reports say this one would be a massive, weeks-long campaign, although this too could be a joint US-Israeli operation. This is all in the realm of speculation at this point. The pieces are all in place. It's now up to Donald Trump to pull the trigger. And it's hard to predict what he'd do. Last month, he came very close to striking Iran, but he pulled back at the last minute. So will it be more of the same this time, or will he finally attack? Iran is not waiting to find out. Their supreme leader has hit out at Washington. That's Ayatollah Khamenei. He says Iran has the ability to sink a US warship.
They say we sent a ship to Iran. Of course, a warship is a dangerous vessel, but even more dangerous is the weapon that can send it to the bottom of the sea. It seems to them that, and the U.S. president keeps saying this, the U.S. Army is the strongest army in the world. The strongest army in the world may sometimes get slapped so hard that it cannot stand up straight.
Iran's powerful military wing is in action. It's called the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is different from the Iranian army. The IRGC's core function is to protect the Iranian regime, not the Iranian people. It's like a personal army of the Ayatollah. And it's the most powerful group in Iran. This week, they launched naval drills in the Strait of Hormuz. They fired missiles and shut the strait partially for some time. They shut the Strait of Hormuz, a part of it. Now, this was a serious warning to the world. Because look at the Strait of Hormuz. It is located between Iran and Oman. It is a vital oil choke point. 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this point. If this choke point closes, oil prices spike, markets panic, and the global economy shakes. And Iran showed that it can close this vital route. Needless to say, the world is watching nervously. There are also naval drills scheduled with Russia. These will take place in the Sea of Oman tomorrow. So as things stand, the diplomats are talking peace, the generals are preparing for war, and the world is stuck in between. Because this standoff is not just about one deal. This is about power. It's about who blinks first. So will this end with a signature on paper or missiles in the sky? We will find out soon.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Moving on now, it's day 3 of the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit here in India, and there is some global engagement, an intense one at that we're seeing. World leaders have gathered here in India's national capital to discuss the future of artificial intelligence, its economic impact, and how it can reach the last man on ground. Ahead of a series of bilateral meetings, Prime Minister Modi has reiterated India's long-term goal to emerge among the world's top 3 AI superpowers by 2047. My colleagues have been getting us the voices from on ground, all the stakeholders who are congregating here in the national capital. In fact, my colleague Simran got us this latest from the Geo stall at the Expo.
When learning and technology come together, a result of this nature is formed. I am here at the Geo Shiksha Center, where exactly the future of using AI into the classroom is here. Not just learning through the ChatGPT or any other models, but what we have here is a technology that is going to transform the way our teachers interact with the students, they teach the lessons, and how the students inside the classroom actually adapt to that learning module. So much so that now it is set to also replace the heavy school bags and the load of the teachers as well. Also that manner in which teachers are going to be assisted with the use of AI. Right now, what you can see is a classic example of how AI powered Jio Shiksha classroom looks like. This is a digital screen that is going to be replacing the regular conventional chalkboards and whiteboards that we have in our classrooms at many schools across the country. And through this very interactive screen, which is going to be the one-step view of these students, teacher is going to be speaking to the students. And this screen that we have on our in fact camera right now is going to be also used with the intelligence of how the teacher wants to actually give the instructions to students and for the chapters.
Well, is India on track to be in the global powerhouse of artificial intelligence? Is India right on track? Well, there is a mission and the government is working towards it. But how is the world looking at India's contribution and this conversation that is centered around India and this particular AI summit? Well, CNN News 18's Rahul Shishankar spoke with the president of Serbia, and this is what he had to say.
I want to ask you, in your view, has Narendra Modi what has he done differently to turn India into a decisive global voice?
I can define it with 3 items. Number one, and don't underestimate that. People always want to underestimate that, to even diminish it from time to time because it's about someone else. He is, number one, a very charismatic and hard-working leader. He is the leader that is well known all over the world, in every single country in the world. India became visible because of him. He is overwhelmingly present and dominant in all different, as I already said, parts of the world. That's number one. Number two, he insisted and he defined a foreign policy of India, of a country or subcontinent, name it you want, in a way you want, as independent and sovereign.
Strategic autonomy.
Yes, in creating and making its own decisions. It means when you speak to Narendra Modi, you speak to him and to Indian people and to Indian state without being influenced from some other powers, from some other mighty centers or whatever. And number three, he successfully caught what some people might say, because both our countries were missing some industrial revolutions in the past. He was catching up, and not only that, he contributed to India's big progress in not only over
Let's turn to Bangladesh now, where the election cheer is already disappearing. Tariq Rahman took charge as the Prime Minister yesterday, and he's already facing his first challenge: protests by the opposition. Yesterday's swearing-in ceremony was attended by more than 1,000 people. The mood was largely celebratory, but turns out there was a major boycott too. The two main opposition parties in Bangladesh did not attend the event. That's the Jamaat-e-Islami and the National Citizen Party, NCP. Neither of them sent representatives to the swearing-in ceremony. They completely boycotted it. In fact, the Jamaat hit the streets in protest. Take a look at this first. So 1,000 people attended the swearing-in, and outside 4,000 Jamaat supporters marched in protest. But protest against what? The so-called July Charter reforms. We've told you about this before. Bangladesh's interim regime had drafted 80 political reforms, things like term limits for prime ministers, more autonomy for courts, and more powers for election officials. These 80 reforms were also put up for voting last week. Voters could either approve all of them, all 80, or they could reject all of them. Around 60% of the voters approved the reforms. So the focus turned to the next step. Bangladesh has to create a constitutional reform council. This council will be made up of the newly elected lawmakers. So yesterday they were sworn in. They were supposed to be sworn in for the council. Just one problem though. The ruling BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, refused. They agreed to take oath as members of parliament, but they refused to take oath as members of the Reform Council. Their excuse? Such a council is not mentioned in the constitution. Now, this led to a flashpoint in Dhaka. At first, the Jamaat and the NCP refused to take any oath. They threatened to stonewall the entire process. But eventually, they relented. So these opposition members took both the oaths, but they decided to boycott the inauguration. Which brings us to present day. Prime Minister Tariq Rahman chaired his first cabinet meeting today. He is expected to address the nation later tonight. Remember, the BNP has not been in power for 20 years. Tariq Rahman himself was in exile for 17 years. So what does this Jamaat backlash mean for them? It's certainly a rocky start. After the election, Tariq Rahman reached out to the opposition. He visited the homes of the Jamaat and NCP chiefs. He called for national unity and respect. Yet the opposition boycotted his swearing-in. Is this a sign of things to come? In Bangladesh, you can never rule it out. Disruptions and street protests are central to Bangladeshi politics. And it's something that the Jamaat has mastered. Plus, they have been shocked by the election verdict. When the results came, the opposition raised doubts. The Jamaat said that there were discrepancies. The NCP called for recounts. So clearly, both parties are unhappy with the result. The question is, will they continue on this path? And to understand that, we must look at the July Charter. Why is the BNP wary of it? The Charter is broadly aimed at reducing executive powers, basically reining in the government. That's what it does. A key proposal is to create a new House of Parliament. And this is going to be a major difference. The Charter wants to elect members based on proportional representation. Say you get 15% of the votes, then you're allotted 15% of the seats. Of course, the BNP does not like that. They want members to be appointed based on parliamentary seats, not vote share. So if they have more elected members, they will dominate the new House as well. It's clear why the BNP likes that. The current system is suited to creating supermajorities. The new system will dilute that ability, which is why the BNP is not keen on these reforms. As for the Jamaat, on paper, they support the Reform Charter, but they too have been lukewarm in campaigning for it. Of course, that may not matter anymore as far as the Jamaat is concerned. This is just an excuse to attack the new government. So do not expect this flashpoint to disappear soon. There is a new threat near the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh, and this one is unlike anything before. 800 kilometers from the Arunachal border, China is making moves. It is secretly expanding its nuclear weapons infrastructure. Satellite images have emerged. They show two facilities deep inside the Sichuan province of China. One facility is for testing. It tests the explosives that trigger nuclear warheads. The other facility is for manufacturing. It makes core components for nukes. Now, China already has more than 600 nuclear warheads. By the year 2030, they want this number to cross 1,000. They want 1,000 nuclear warheads. So they're building that capacity in secret. in the mountains. Here is a full report.
Satellite images do not lie, and what they show inside China's mountains is significant. Nuclear facilities, expanding, quietly. Just 800 kilometers from India's border, according to one claim. Deep inside Sichuan province, China is building, not roads, not railways, nuclear weapons infrastructure. The New York Times reported satellite imagery analyzed by experts. The images show rapid expansion at two secretive sites, Zitong and Pingtong. Both trace their origins to Mao Zedong's Third Front program. The idea was simple: hide critical military industries deep inland. For decades, both sites went quiet. Then, around 2019, construction resumed. At Zitong Valley, satellite images show new bunkers and fortified ramparts. Experts believe the site tests high explosives, the kind used to compress nuclear material inside a warhead, to trigger a chain reaction. The testing area spans an oval space roughly the size of 10 basketball courts. This is not routine maintenance. Pingtong is considered even more sensitive. It is double-fenced. Experts believe it produces plutonium pits. A plutonium pit is the core component of a nuclear warhead, the heart of the bomb. The facility features a 360-foot ventilation stack, a hallmark of plutonium handling. Above the entrance, a slogan from President Xi Jinping reads, "Stay true to the founding cause and always remember our mission." The expansion does not stop at Sichuan. In nearby Mianyang, China is building a laser ignition facility. It allows warhead research without full-scale nuclear detonations. China can advance its nuclear program without triggering the alarms a live test would set off. Now step back. What does this mean for China's nuclear program? According to the United States Department of Defense, China had more than 600 nuclear warheads by the end of 2024. By 2030, that number is projected to cross 1,000. That would make China the third largest nuclear power on the planet, behind only Russia and the United States. Beijing calls its arsenal defensive, but the scale, the secrecy, and the pace say otherwise. There is also disorder inside China's own nuclear command. The leadership of the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force was purged. Reports cited corruption and operational failures. Missiles were allegedly found filled with water instead of fuel, and yet the expansion continues, at speed, in secrecy. So why does this matter for India? Sichuan sites are far from coastal flashpoints like Taiwan, but they sit close to India's eastern sector. This inland location shields the facilities from U.S. strikes while maintaining strategic reach towards India. The nuclear expansion and the border buildup are separate on paper. In practice, they reinforce each other. A larger nuclear force gives Beijing confidence to apply pressure along disputed borders, on China's terms.
We seem to be living in a simulation. Because guess who's talking about strategic autonomy? Canada. The same Canada that was joined at the hip with America, the same country that was once called America, but polite. Well, now they want a divorce. Their Prime Minister Mark Carney is calling for strategic autonomy. And his first mission is to build weapons in Canada. Carney has unveiled a defense industrial strategy. And it has one main philosophy. Build at home wherever possible. If you can't build, then find a partner to co-produce. And if you can't co-produce, then buy from outside. Basically, build, partner, buy. That's how this strategy is being described.
This strategy is about protecting Canada's sovereignty in its fullest sense. In other words, our ability to act independently in that more dangerous and divided world. And to be clear, This strategic autonomy doesn't mean isolation.
So why is Canada doing this? Simply put, because of dependence. Historically, Canada has bought weapons from the United States. Around 75% of their imports came from Washington. And Prime Minister Carney wants to end that dependence.
There are many strengths to this partnership that we have with the United States, but it is a dependency, and it's a dependency we want to change in a positive way by building up our defense capacities here and our other partnerships abroad.
This dependency is not new. It has existed for decades. So why is Canada addressing it now? Because of US President Donald Trump. He wants Canada to become the 51st state of America. He has also imposed steep tariffs on Canadian goods. These moves have forced Canada to rethink. They don't see Washington as a reliable ally anymore. Hence this push for autonomy. Now we come to the defense plan. How will it be rolled out? As always, the first step is to spend money. Canada will spend 2% of its GDP on defense this year. It's been a NATO target for years. Spend 2% of your GDP on defense. That's the target. But Canada is hitting it for the first time ever. After that, the target is 5% of the GDP, to spend 5% on defense. Prime Minister Carney expects to achieve this 5% target by the year 2035. So spending is the backbone of this new plan. The second step is deciding where to spend the money. Right now, only 43% of contracts go to Canadian companies. The target is to reach 70% in one decade. Which brings us to the third step: export more weapons. Liberal leaders have been reluctant to do this. The likes of Justin Trudeau were not focused on exporting weapons, but Carney is the opposite. He is targeting a 50% hike in arms exports. If you combine the domestic sales, it would be a windfall. Carney is expecting a 240% rise in defense revenue. Which brings us to the final step. Canada wants to have more serviceability. Basically, it wants more weapons to be ready at all times. Say you have 100 fighter jets and 50 of them are always ready for operation, then your serviceability is 50%. Canada wants to increase that from 51% to 80% for Army vehicles, from 42% to 85% for Air Force planes. They want more weapons to be ready for combat. So that sums up Canada's big plan. Spend more, spend at home, export more, and more serviceability. Put together, it's a $500 billion push. That's how much money they plan to invest by 2035. But as we know, defense is not just about money. What about technologies that Canada does not have? Well, that's where Europe comes in. Last year, Canada signed a defense pact with the European Union. This week, they joined a European loan program. It's called SAFE, Secure Action for Europe, SAFE, SAFE. Canada is the only non-European country to join it. And what does it do? Say a member country wants to build or to buy a fighter jet, or maybe tanks or missiles. Then the SAFE program will offer you low-interest loans. What's more, you can make the weapons jointly. And that is what Canada is betting on. If they do not have certain technologies, they will tie up with Europe, maybe invite European companies to make in Canada. And I know this sounds very easy on paper, but trust me, it's anything but. Consider the issue of advanced fighter jets. Canada was looking at the US F-35. The plan was to buy 88 of these jets over time, but then came Donald Trump. So Carney began reviewing the F-35 proposal. He even looked at alternatives like the Swedish Gripen. But eventually, reality hit. Last week, Canada started making payments for 14 F-35 jets. Maybe they won't buy all 88 of the planes they planned to. Maybe they'll add some Gripens or Eurofighters. But the point is, America will remain a player. A century-long dependence cannot be wiped out in years. It will be a multi-decade operation. But frankly, the bigger story here is the political realignment. Canada is openly saying it does not trust America. And if Canada cannot trust America, who can? It's a question for so-called US allies.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Moving on now, it's day 3 of the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit here in India, and there is some global engagement, an intense one at that we're seeing. World leaders have gathered here in India's national capital to discuss the future of artificial intelligence, its economic impact, and how it can reach the last man on ground. Ahead of a series of bilateral meetings, Prime Minister Modi has reiterated India's long-term goal to emerge among the world's top 3 AI superpowers by 2047. My colleagues have been getting us the voices from on ground, all the stakeholders who are congregating here in the national capital. In fact, my colleague Simran got us this latest from the Geo stall at the Expo.
When learning and technology come together, a result of this nature is formed. I am here at the Geo Shiksha Center, where exactly the future of using AI into the classroom is here. Not just learning through the ChatGPT or any other models, but what we have here is a technology that is going to transform the way our teachers interact with the students, they teach the lessons, and how the students inside the classroom actually adapt to that learning module. So much so that now it is set to also replace the heavy school bags and the load of the teachers as well. Also that manner in which teachers are going to be assisted with the use of AI. Right now, what you can see is a classic example of how AI-powered Geo Shiksha classroom looks like. This is a digital screen that is going to be replacing the regular conventional chalkboards and whiteboards that we have in our classrooms at many schools across the country. And through this very interactive screen, which is going to be the one-step view of these students, teacher is going to be speaking to the students. And this screen that we have on our, in fact, camera right now is going to be also used with the intelligence of how the teacher wants to actually give the instructions to students and for the chapters.
Well, is India on track to be in the global powerhouse of artificial intelligence? Is India right on track? Well, there is a mission and the government is working towards it. But how is the world looking at India's contribution and this conversation that is centered around India and this particular AI summit? Well, CNN News 18's Rahul Shishankar spoke with the president of Serbia, and this is what he had to say.
I want to ask you, in your view, has Narendra Modi what has he done differently to turn India into a decisive global voice?
I can define it with 3 items. Number 1, and don't underestimate that. People always want to underestimate it, to even diminish it from time to time because it's about someone else. He is, number 1, a very charismatic and hard-working leader. He is the leader that is well known all over the world, in every single country in the world. India became visible because of him. He is overwhelmingly present and dominant in all different, as I already said, parts of the world. That's number 1. Number 2, he insisted and he defined a foreign policy of India, of a country or subcontinent, name it you want, in a way you want, as independent and sovereign.
Strategic autonomy.
Yes, in creating and making its own decisions. It means when you speak to Narendra Modi, you speak to him and to Indian people and to Indian state without being influenced from some other powers, from some other mighty centers or whatever. And number 3, he successfully quote what some people might say, because both our countries were missing some industrial revolutions in the past. He was catching up, and not only that, he contributed to India's big progress in not only overall economy, but in specific areas like IT sector, digitized economy, AI industry.
We speak often of strategic autonomy, the country that is. And as a European leader navigating intense geopolitical pressure yourself, because you've adopted the same.
Our next story is about Donald Trump. He's facing a growing disapproval at home. And we are not the ones saying it. It's the polls. Several new surveys show that Trump's approval ratings have dropped to below 40%. And it gets worse. One poll has found something even more striking. 40% of Americans now consider Trump to be the worst president in US history. In comparison, only 12% call him the best president. Now, this is a serious gap, especially with the midterm elections coming up later this year. So what has caused this drop in Trump's approval ratings? Here's a report.
Last year, Donald Trump walked back into the White House. It was one of the most dramatic political comebacks in modern American history. A president who left office in chaos returned in triumph. The question then was, what would he do with a second chance? But the question now is, can he hold on to it? This is because his approval ratings are dropping. Several new polls show his approval rating has slipped below 40%. Disapproval is running far higher than before. And with midterm elections approaching later this year, those numbers matter. They shape momentum, confidence, and power in Washington. So what changed? Let's start with the economy. Many American families still feel squeezed by high prices. Tariffs on imports have drawn criticism from businesses and consumers. Some voters who backed Trump on economic promises are now dissatisfied. Then there is immigration. Trump returned to office promising the largest deportation drive in decades. Raids began quickly across several cities soon after. Images of arrests and clashes with protesters have dominated headlines. But recent polling shows approval of his immigration handling has fallen to the lowest level since his return.
I'm fine for lawful enforcement of immigration laws and borders, but when the Trump administration uses federal agencies to basically terrorize its own citizens and act in totally unlawful ways, it's very depressing.
Concerns around his foreign policy have also added pressure. Sharp rhetoric and bold moves abroad have kept global tensions in the news. That has unsettled allies and dominated domestic debate. And then there is the Epstein controversy. Documents linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have brought renewed political scrutiny. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and has called the allegations a conspiracy against him.
I have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated.
The denials have been firm, but the controversy has not gone away. Together, these issues have created a steady stream of political pressure, and they come at a sensitive moment. Midterm elections are in November this year. Historically, when a president's approval rating falls below 40%, their party often loses seats in the Congress. Some polling analysis suggests Republicans could face losses in the House if approval stays low. If that happens, oversight gets tougher, and Trump's legislative agenda may become far harder to advance. This has pushed the White House to respond. Some immigration operations have been scaled back. Officials have hinted at reviewing certain tariffs. The moves look like a deliberate effort to steady the ship before voters head to the polls. For now, Trump mostly retains strong loyalty among his core supporters. That base remains firm. But beyond it, the political map looks less certain. The second term began as a comeback story. Now, it is becoming a test for Trump. And as the midterms draw closer, the numbers may decide how much room Trump has left to govern.
Last night, the internet experienced its worst nightmare. YouTube stopped working. No videos, no shorts, no distractions from real life. Users opened the app and got one message: something is wrong. Within minutes, the entire planet rushed to X, not to complain, but to confirm. And then came the memes. Because when YouTube goes down, human productivity goes up. And the internet becomes a stand-up comedian. Take a look.
Pew, 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 pew.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Moving on now, it's day 3 of the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit here in India, and there is some global engagement, an intense one at that we're seeing. World leaders have gathered here in India's national capital to discuss the future of artificial intelligence, its economic impact, and how it can reach the last man on ground. Ahead of a series of bilateral meetings, Prime Minister Modi has reiterated India's long-term goal to emerge among the world's top 3 AI superpowers by 2047. My colleagues have been getting us the voices from on ground, all the stakeholders who are congregating here in the national capital. In fact, my colleague Simran got us this latest from the Geo stall at the Expo.
When learning and technology come together, a result of this nature is formed. I am here at the Geo Shiksha Center, where exactly the future of using AI into the classroom is here. Not just learning through the ChatGPT or any other models, but what we have here is a technology that is going to transform the way our teachers interact with the students, they teach the lessons, and how the students inside the classroom actually adapt to that learning module. So much so that now it is set to also replace the heavy school bags and the load of the teachers as well. Also that manner in which teachers are going to be assisted with the use of AI. Right now, what you can see is a classic example of how AI-powered Geo Shiksha classroom looks like. This is a digital screen that is going to be replacing the regular conventional chalkboards and whiteboards that we have in our classrooms at many schools across the country. And through this very interactive screen, which is going to be the one-step view of these students, teacher is going to be speaking to the students. And this screen that we have on our in fact camera right now is going to be also used with the intelligence of how the teacher wants to actually give the instructions to students and for the chapters.
Well, is India on track to be in the global powerhouse of artificial intelligence? Is India right on track? Well, there is a mission and the government is working towards it. But how is the world looking at India's contribution and this conversation that is centered around India and this particular AI summit? Well, CNN News 18's Rahul Shishankar spoke with the president of Serbia.
आज शायद पहली बार ऐसा हो रहा है जैसे हम आपको नमस्ते कह रहे हैं कि स्टंप माइक में कोई चकल्लस नहीं चल रहा, कोई बातचीत नहीं हो रही है, क्योंकि हम हेडलाइन के बाद सीधे आ रहे हैं और हेडलाइन में खबरें ऐसी थी कि भाई भारत और नीदरलैंड्स का मैच शायद टॉप पे ही रह गया। लेकिन उमेश यादव, संजय मांजरेकर, श्रीशांत और मोंटी पानेसर हमारे साथ हैं। 17 रन से जीत।